had to look that up because they're all starting to blend together during COVID-19. And this is your morning's political news headlines. It's a quick take so that you can get your day started right and have all the information that you need to know. Thank you for joining us. If you like what you hear today, please consider sponsoring this journalism at haps.tv/@Alex So we are now on the morning of the third day of the Democratic National Convention. We are now halfway through the convention, and so far it has been a very interesting experience. It's been all virtual, which, as many of you know, or people who watch these conventions know, is different than the normal call to order. These conventions are usually big events with lots of fanfare, lots of pomp and circumstance, lots of crowds and balloons and cheering and speeches, usually multiple hours of coverage every single day on all of the major networks. This time, because of COVID, it has moved to an entire virtual forum, and the first two nights have been a very interesting proposition. So on night one, we had Michelle Obama and Bernie Sanders. Last night, we had former President Bill Clinton. And then we had a very interesting setup, and I want to get into the setup just a bit because I thought it was an interesting way that they handled the night two of the convention. So we did hear from some of the Democratic notables like Bill Clinton, who gave the night's keynote address, you might call it, although because it's only 2 hours of coverage a night this year, all of the speeches are notably shorter than what they might usually be. The roll call vote. So last night, of course, Joe Biden did formally accept the Democratic Party's nomination for President of the United States, making him the formal nominee. It is official. And a part of that is a roll call process where the different states all allocate their delegates and award them to the candidates from the Democratic primary who won their state's vote. So this time, instead of having a big floor roll call from the convention hall, we cut away to sort of an American travelogue. It traveled all of the states, and we sort of got some great locations and scenery, really notable locations. And in awarding the delegates, we had some interesting people being asked to do that. In Wyoming, we had the parents of Matthew Shepard, who was a young gay teen who was killed in the 1990s, talking about LGBTQ rights. In Florida, we had Fred Gutenberg, whose child was killed at the Parkland shootings, talking about gun reform. And there was a lot of diversity in the people that were selected to represent the different states. And people were commenting that this is a real reflection of what the Democratic Party is trying to do. They're really trying to reflect the diversity and the big tent that is the Democratic Party. So aside from the roll call, we had some notable speeches from rising Democratic stars. There was a two-minute speech from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which was drawing a lot of criticism online, but it appears that criticism might be unfounded. So here's what's up with that. AOC gave a 2-minute speech in which she seconded the nomination of Bernie Sanders and not Joe Biden, which people were taking to mean that she was sort of flouting the process or endorsing Bernie Sanders. But the truth is that that's not exactly an accurate representation of what happened. This is a procedural speech that is happening in the normal procedural order of the Democratic Convention's nominating process. So she was asked to give a speech in which she seconded Bernie Sanders' nomination and also speak a little bit about the future of the Democratic Party's platform, which anyone who has watched her knows she's a phenom. She's certainly going to have a rising role in the Democratic Party. So last night, we also heard from former Secretary of State and presidential candidate himself, John Kerry. He was the Democratic nominee in 2004. He did not win that race. He did give a very forceful speech. One of the notable quotes was, "When this president goes overseas, it isn't a goodwill mission, it's a blooper reel." He talked about the Russian bounties on American troops, which was reported earlier, I think last month, that Russians had been putting a bounty on American troops with the Taliban, and that the President of the United States did nothing in response. So, as a former Secretary of State, of course, John Kerry had opinions about that and did say this is a fight for the security of the country and the world. And that segued into a portion about military leaders, former and current, who talked about the danger that Donald Trump poses to national security. We had one of them saying that Trump has had a love affair with dictators in China and Russia. And Colin Powell, a noted Republican who worked in the George W. Bush administration, even spoke on behalf of Joe Biden, which sort of played into a little bit of a theme that we've been seeing emerge over the last 2 days, which is that the Democratic Party is seeking to unify Americans regardless of where they fall on the political spectrum. On Monday night, we had Bernie Sanders. We had AOC last night. We've got Colin Powell, a Republican, a section of former Republican voters and former Republican elected officials. Not to say that the Biden campaign is pivoting to the right, but really to say that the bigger existential threat to the country is not anything but Donald Trump himself, and that even Republicans can see that he is not a Republican and that this isn't the politics as usual or normal. So John McCain even got a shout out posthumously, and we know that the McCain family plans to support Joe Biden. So really, I think what the Biden campaign is saying it's time to rise above tribalism and put away politics as usual and get Donald Trump out. We did get to speak with Dr. Jill Biden during the second night of the convention. Really humanizing and getting to get to know her a little bit and the backstory of the family. What are we talking about? We are talking about the Democratic National Convention, night 2. We are halfway through the Democratic National Convention, and now there are 2 more nights. Tonight, Wednesday night, is the Women of Power segment. I would like to call it the Powerful Women segment because it's a very exciting lineup of notable women. We've got former Secretary of State and Democratic nominee from 2016, Hillary Clinton. We've got the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, the first and second female Speaker of the House. We have Kamala Harris accepting the nomination for Vice President. We've got presidential candidate and Senator Elizabeth Warren. It should be a very exciting evening. We have a question. How do you feel about the short film before Jill spoke? I thought anything, that's actually pretty normal convention type media when we have these sort of little short films that are meant to humanize the candidates. And I find those very interesting. I'm always more personally interested in hearing what the candidates have to say directly to us. But I do always get a little bit verklempt when they talk about Joe Biden's son, Beau Biden, who passed away, and the tragic accident that took his wife and children many decades ago. So it does humanize him. I do think that it's important to have a president with empathy who understands grief and loss, and I think that makes him very relatable. What's new regarding U.S. Postal Service? I'm glad you asked. There's been a lot of bite back against the proposed cuts to the budget in the U.S. Postal Service by the Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, who is a Trump appointee. Now, people have been protesting in front of the Postmaster General's home for some time, and he is scheduled to appear before Congress to testify as to some of the changes that are happening that are resulting in the slowdown of the U.S. Postal Service ahead of the November election. So because of this criticism, it appears as of yesterday that DeJoy has backed down from some of the proposed cuts to the budget ahead of November. There's no telling whether this is true or going to stand up. I think it's important that Americans continue to keep an eye on this situation because, as we know, Trump's appointees have frequently made promises that they don't keep. It was just less than 2 years ago now that the Department of Homeland Security started putting children in cages, told the American people that they were going to cease that practice, and yet it continues today. So we've got lots of comments. Hi, Allison. Thank you for joining. Do I think Trump will secretly try to negotiate immunity in return for not contesting a potential Biden election win? I don't put anything past Trump. I think Trump doesn't want to leave office because he is worried that he will be indicted upon leaving the White House. I think that that is a reasonable assumption based on the investigations that are happening in the Southern District of New York and by the Manhattan District Attorney. So, it's yet to see. We do know that there are active investigations and that there is a memo from the Office of the General Counsel of the White House that that says that a sitting U.S. president cannot be indicted while in office. So it stands reasonable to assume that Mr. Trump doesn't want to leave the office of the president because he's worried about criminal indictments. So thank you so much for joining this morning on the AM Report with Alex Mohajer. I'm just enjoying my cup of coffee this morning. We are live every weekday morning at 7:30 Pacific time with your quick political news and headlines. If you like this program, if you like this journalism, please consider sponsoring this content. Visit taps.tv/@Alex Mohajer and donate today and become a subscribing member. And we would love to see you every morning. And thanks for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.